Okay, I got a question for you. Is Eric going to be here or is he remotely? Okay, and then Ann will be watching the internet or the Zoom for people if we can't see them in here. Okay, you can do that in there. Okay. Okay. Where's Patrick? 7 o'clock. We are calling the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I am looking for the agenda. We have Louis made the motion. Mike seconded it. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? We are now looking for approval of minutes for the June 17th, 2021 meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Mike made the motion, Louis seconded it. Is there any discussion, concerns, questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Opposed? Passed. Petitions. Docket PC 07152101 for Erickson Family Shady Maple Farm Limited Partnership. Eric Johnson, you ready?
I am. Can you hear me okay, Mark?
Yep.
Okay. We have a brief PowerPoint presentation, and maybe to try to get away with this, maybe we'll advance each slide about every 15 seconds, just so everybody gets a chance to kind of look at the display, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions there after we get into the substance of this application. Okay, this first petition is an interim use / conditional use permit. That would mean to the Planning Commission, it's your option on how you would like to take action on this as far as a recommendation to the board. Would be important to note that this is a request for a new facility. There is reference as we get into the photos and the mapping and the staff report that the applicants did receive a conditional use permit on the same property, but at a different location to the west, and that is made reference to in the materials. The map that we're looking at now is the general location. It's approximately 3-4 miles east of Lewiston and about 3 miles north of Wyatttville, kind of just off of County Road 23 and County Road 25, located in Warren Township. This is a kind of general mapping location. You can see on the right or to the east is Greg Erickson's farmstead. And we have a mapping exhibit that calls out reference Shed A, which would be the bulk of the request. And we also see Shed B, which sits below or just to the south of that. That is the old milking parlor. It is indicated as a potential winter or whelping area for the female dogs during the winter. And we see the general vicinity of the neighboring dwelling to the south, which is on the other side of County Road 25. That is the nearest non-relative neighbor. As we look kind of to the west and north of County Road 25 at the buildings, there's several home sites that I believe are relatives of the Erickson family. And just immediately there where you see kind of some building enclosures just north of those houses is where the previous kennel was approved. Why the applicants have requested this, you can kind of see a drawn in hand ink line that somewhat runs, yes, right along that manner, and it's staff's understanding that there could be a potential division of the property for trust purposes and for land to some of the relatives. So therefore, it may give some credence to why at this point in time the Ericksons are looking at separate facilities on this. The project summary on the left on the notes is a proposed kennel with up to 20 large adult dogs, mastiffs. The previous site we touched on was issued in March of 2018, located to the west. The nearest non-family resident to the proposed kennel is approximately 340 feet away from Shed B. Tom Thiede is the owner at that location. A couple of photos. Shed A is the northernmost structure. It's roughly a 60 by 60 shed in which would be retrofitted for kennel purposes. Currently, it's machine storage and agricultural storage. This would be the Shed B building located to the south. It's what's left of the old milking parlor building, and the applicants have indicated that this could potentially be used for the winter whelping shelter building for that purpose. This is standing essentially at the north of the buildings, looking back to the south along the eastern edge. You can see some fence posts. And if you look carefully, that's also corresponds with the site plan that the applicant had submitted, and that he has started to plant some trees along that. He was looking at potentially planting trees on the other corner or on the other side as well, and just wanted to point that out. This would be looking back to the west at the March 2018 conditional use permit in which the family received a conditional use permit for. And that just gives the nature of what that facility is. It's important to note that currently I believe that is running close to 20 adult animals. The conditional use permit was granted to up to 50, but it's staff's understanding that they're running about 20 at this point in time. Part of the application materials, staff received a township acknowledgement form in which Warren Township met during their May meeting, and they indicated support in regards to the request. Discussion points for that 2018. They were granted a conditional use permit. In this case, they're seeking an interim use permit because of sensitivity. You know, we talked about that with the applicant, and we had a prior cases there that we've dealt with earlier in the year, some similar situation, and due to concerns that have arose according to public perception in the planning commission and county board, I thought, you know, it'd be best that this could be considered as an interim use permit, and that it's not running in perpetuity with the land, but on a specific applicant for a specific use. The conditional use 1260 from that time was approved in April 2018, and that would not prohibit the transfer of ownership. So that's the big difference compared to then and now. Again, staff has evaluated this application or petition as an IUP with a potential terminating event would be the discontinuance of the business or sale of the property to an owner other than the petitioners. Either of those events could or would be used as the identifiable event for an IUP termination. Recommendation from staff is to consider all the testimony, consider the staff report, the findings of fact, the public testimony, the discussion that this board has, and make a recommendation to the county board and consider the conditions that are recommended to be inserted with that recommendation. Thanks, and I guess with that, is there any immediate questions?
All right, first Arlie has a comment to make.
I just wanted to let it be known that the Erickson family is somewhat related to me, and if there's a problem, I don't know, Natalie, is there, or Stephanie, I mean, I'm sorry. Is there a problem with me being on that? I mean, there's no financial.
If there's no financial, unless there's a concern by anybody that may ask you to. You're still comfortable with the state.
Okay.
Hey, does anyone have any questions for Eric?
I may have one.
Hey, Steve?
Eric, I'm wondering, how has compliance been with the existing application from 2018?
Really non-eventful. We haven't received any complaints or record. The one thing that we'll probably be getting into is we've had discussions with the applicant. There's been some questions as to when, at what threshold do you require a commercial license from either the state or from the federal? And when I say state, that's the Minnesota Board of Animal Health. And when I say federal, that's the USDA, or what I believe what they go by is APHIS when it comes to this division. And it's my understanding, I guess that would be a good question for the applicant, but as far as seeing a license or securing that, I think the applicants were under an impression that if they kept at 20 or fewer, that they would be exempt. I think as staff has dug into this some more, the thresholds are different for the state and federal, and I think very clearly that they probably would be subject to they would be required to get both a state and federal permit. So that would be the only thing of major concern that staff has identified at this point.
Anybody else? Kelly?
And what are those thresholds again, Eric?
If you please bear with me 1 second. I believe I'm just gonna, and maybe if you want to pull up while we're kind of digging into this right off the bat, we do have some information saved in our share file. Maybe under probably mapping exhibits or meeting presentations. Okay, yeah, like the Minnesota Board of Health Commercial Breeder PDF. Anyway, one says that if you commercially raise 10 adult dogs, you need a commercial license. The other unit of government says that I believe 5 litters of dogs or kittens in the course of a year. So basically on those thresholds, it looks like even having 20 is very clearly that you do need a commercial license for both from the state and from the federal level.
So whether it's a commercial operation or not, depends solely on the number of dogs rather than who you sell to?
Yeah, even if you were doing classifieds and selling out of your house, I think the numbers are such. There's a whole lot of language in those applications and caveats and those rules. But it looks very clearly that if you're going to be engaging in selling either kittens or dogs, the sheer numbers would say that you do have to have those licenses.
Okay, and so in the operation that was granted a CUP in 2018, how many adult dogs did you say they had?
They had up to 20. But I think when the county board approved it, they gave them the discretion to go up to 50. But I think in the last 3 years, they've kept it at 20.
And, okay, so they're raising 20 adult dogs currently in the 2000, okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Anybody else have any other questions for Eric?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Lynn?
Eric, I don't know if it was, when you were on the tour, if it was laid out or if I have to ask the petitioner, but did they show where the dog runs are, where the open space for socializing will be?
Yeah, they showed that there's potential for runs on the proposed new one, either to the north or to the west, or kind of lopping off the north and western corners. There would be areas for them to go outside the building and to have a socialization area adjacent to the kennel. In that picture and viewing the existing one, you could see that it was designed with an internal building and then fenced enclosures where they would have some access to outside areas as well.
So I'm just trying to picture in my head, the runs, is that like for each kennel, they have access to the outdoors on their own? Like I remember the previous one that we.
Yeah, they probably have hours or times when they do it. As we've kind of discussed with these, it can be kind of the dogs are pretty active, and I suppose they try to be sensitive, because they do really make a lot of noise when they're when they're out. And I don't, some of the other ones that we had previously, the runs were more longitudinal runs that they could run. These are just maybe additional open space adjacent to their kennel area that they would be accessed to get outside.
You.
Anybody else have any other questions for Eric?
Eric, this is Patrick. I have one or two for you.
Okay, Patrick?
What's the status with, the veterinary medicine personnel in the area regarding this? Have they been, has this potential facility been checked out with the number of animals and regarding their overall health and just from A to Z as far as a animal vet would provide some information on that. Has that been?
Yeah, and if you look at the materials that were submitted, typically what they're doing with the current one and what's proposed for this one is that they've indicated that their veterinarian care regimen consists of the vet coming out every 7 weeks and making sure that the vaccinations and well checks are current with the animals. The protocol is they do deworming and grooming as necessary. And if in case they have to talk about euthanasia, that would be, I think, tasked with that part. I'm going basically on the fact sheet here as far as their operations that we kind of use as a base point to the American Kennel Club care and conditions, and you see what the applicant's notes are. So that would be staff's understanding of what their protocol is. But if you wanted more, I guess that would be a good question for the applicant too.
And another one is that apparently the old milk house, parlor, whatever, would be used in inclement weather for a warm-up place.
Right, I believe that would be heated. So
Okay.
you have a building then that is heated for that
Is-
purpose.
Is that, that space that would be used for that, is that sufficiently ready to go for probably the number of animals that could be using it?
No, I don't believe the applicant has made those improvements, obviously, because I think before those, improvements would be made, wanted to make sure that the zoning would be appropriate before he moved forward with putting investments into, the buildings themselves.
So that is still a potential concern.
Yeah, could be.
Having, okay, thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I have one more
Okay.
question. I think it's a really dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. The application says Mastiff dash Poodle. I'm assuming there are Mastiffs and Poodles. They're not a Mastiff Poodle mix that's being proposed, correct?
I don't want to pretend I'm a specialist when it comes to dog breeds neither. It's just that the ones that I did see from a distance, the Mastiffs are rather large dogs. They're good
Right.
sized dogs.
Well, standard poodles can be kind of large too, but I just wanted to, we're not proposing a cross, right?
That would be a question for the applicant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Applicant question. Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions for Eric? Okay, if not, would the applicant care to come up and speak for your petition? Explain everything and we'll ask you some hard
Explain
questions.
everything, but I'll try. Yeah, I'm Greg Erickson, my wife Jeannie and I have lived on our farm for I think 44 years. Just to make some clarifications, on this application, I've had a lady kind of attacking my credibility when I put down one part-time help. And 5 years from now, I might have one part-time farm help. So I made this application saying that might be a possibility, but right now I'm full-time taking care of the dogs I have. I'm gearing up to 20. I might only get to 10. I don't know where we're gonna. I put down 20 per year as a customer, or 100 per year as customers, and with question mark, because I don't know how many customers I'm gonna have. I don't know how many puppies I'm gonna have, so I left it open. I don't want to put down 100 and sell 120, and somebody calls me a liar. I might sell 20 and I might sell 120, but Eric, I think, made one small mistake. He said my exercise lots would go north and west. They're going to go north and east. To your question, I started a dairy 30 years ago, and I went from Holstein to Brown Swiss to Ayrshire. I'm Mastiff and Poodle right now. I don't know what the market will, wherever the market leads us, I guess. So when I put down weight, 100 or 20 to 160 pounds, I might be in miniature dogs. So I'm leaving the application kind of open. I don't really have anything else to say. I have, been going a long time, right? I have 14 grandchildren within 1,000 feet of my home. I hope this might be an opportunity to work with some of my grandchildren, teach them how to work. And this 10-page bashing of dog racing is like they throw black paint on me and everybody else that wants to raise dogs. I want to do a good job. I love dogs, and I think it might be a way to help provide for my family. And I rented the farm out now after 44 years of running it, and I'm looking for something to do. And I thought this might be a good way to raise a little income. So questions? Mark?
Does anyone have any questions for that?
I
Lynn?
do.
Okay.
Just for general knowledge, trying to understand what the dog's day is like. I appreciate that you're on site, and it sounds like you're gonna be meeting all the compliance requirements with their social time and some physical touch and stuff. But then I wonder about the actual breeding part, with the female dogs. I mean, you have male dogs and female dogs,
We're gearing up for that.
or do you bring in the
We only
sires?
have 2 adult females right now, but we have young ones coming, hoping this conditional use goes through.
Sir, can you speak a little louder and a little closer to the microphone? A couple of the folks on.
Okay,
on
I'm
the
sorry.
call.
I thought I was too loud.
It should be echoing in your own ears.
Okay, it is.
So, I mean, I know a little bit with how it works with horses, but with dogs, you just kind of let them hang out and socialize, and I mean, you're not like making sure that there's actual, fertilization. Is it more I mean, is it artificially inseminated? I'm just
No,
curious.
no,
how
we're not
the breeding-
artificially inseminated. We're pretty new at this, so we see a heat and we bring a male in and allow them to bond or tie. And we do that a couple times per heat, and hopefully
Something comes of it.
something comes of it, yeah.
Okay. And then when they're not interacting that way, they're pretty much all by themselves until they have social time outside of their kennels. Is that how they spend their days, or?
Day is in my 2 adults, one of them is a house dog. So, don't quote me, but that dog stays in our laundry room. This is, really hot information here, so. The other dog is a dog that is kenneled and has a litter right now. And she's let out for an hour a day and then back with her puppies. Those puppies are about 4 weeks old, so. Does that answer your question?
Well, it's giving me a little better idea of, thinking of how these types of operations actually play out. Because, of course, we hear terrible stories from people who have never been, even on site.
Yeah, that one was 10 pages of terrible stories, 7 years ago, and we have a lot of good stories, kind of like the dairy industry, or when a family comes and picks up a puppy and, and they give us pictures of it on, what they're doing and how much it's growing and then how they appreciate it. It's kind of a good thing. The socializing of dogs, it's kind of a touchy thing. There's a dominant female and you let 3 dogs together and you got to stay with them the whole time because, all it takes is one trying to challenge the other one for the dominancy and then you've got trouble. So socializing is, time consuming. So, but I usually try to keep these younger ones now, if they're brought up with, 2 in a pen, then they socialize better. So I'm trying that. So.
I've got a question. You
Yeah.
brought it up kind of about, now, you mentioned a couple different things. One, you don't raise puppies that you don't have a home for. Like you said, if there's no market for them, you're not just going to raise puppies. So you sell to individuals only?
Only.
You do not sell to stores that resell
Well, I've only had 4 litters, so,
Okay.
But
But I mean, that's your
my
intention,
intent
your
is to
intention.
sell, face to face.
Right. them? Because I remember when you were here, or your family was here before, they said that, yeah, they sell face to face, and yeah, then they keep up on, I don't know, whatever internet thing they have where they watch the puppies grow and keep track of,
Yeah. I'm not an
And
expert
that's-
at it yet. I probably never will be, so. But that's our plan.
Anybody else have, Kate?
So, since the low end was 20 pounds, does that mean your plan might be to raise like miniature poodles or toys or?
I don't have a plan. Whatever the market will bear is probably where we'll try to go.
Okay, so up until now, it's been Mastiffs?
Yeah, Mastiffs is the
And
breed.
you're thinking
But
of,
we only had one, so we're not.
okay, okay. Okay, that's all.
Anybody have any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'm looking for a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, Lynn made the motion and Kelly seconded it. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. The public hearing is now open. If anyone wishes to speak for or against the petition, please step forward, state your name, address, and what you'd like to say.
Hello, can you hear me? Should I adjust this?
Yeah, you better
Just
pull
pull
that
it
right
down.
in.
There you go.
Yep, gotta get
Can you
close.
hear me? Hello, my name is Ann Olson. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here. I'm with a group, a nonprofit group called Animal Folks, based in Minnesota, but basically we deal with animal cruelty issues throughout Minnesota, including holding cruelty training, developing materials and animal law, crafting legislation, different bills at the Capitol, and other matters. In 2016, I was actually here testifying before the Winona County Board. At that time, 7 commercial dog breeders were looking for a permit. They had already been in full operation.
Ms. Olson, one of the questions that just a little louder and push it down a little. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Can you hear me now? That sounds like a TV commercial. Do you think that works?
If you can hear it echoing to yourself, you're probably talking about now.
Okay, yeah, this is echoing. I wanted to mention that when I was here before, multiple times to come down here, but in 2016 testified to the Winona County Board about the commercial breeding facilities wanting a local permit. Now there were, and at that time, we had also filed an animal cruelty complaint against one of those breeders. There were others who testified too. I remember one person who was a spokesperson for the breeders, and he was asked to.
You can't win.
What?
You can't win.
I know. Okay, should I just keep going? Okay, as long as it doesn't hurt your ears. This particular person, who was a spokesperson, he was asked a question by one of the other commissioners, a commissioner about the older dogs. And he wanted to know what happened to the older dogs once they're no longer of use. And are they killed? And I clearly remember the breeder's response, because he said, well, our dogs are no longer dogs after 7 years. And it really begged the question, what is going on within the facilities that a dog would be so damaged and so broken, physically and mentally, that just after 7 years, it would no longer be a normal dog. But it also begged the question, what responsibility does a county bear in giving a permit that would allow a situation like this? It's just about discussion. So one of the main issues I have today is more than land use, or one petitioner, the Ericksons. It's really a bigger issue. It's about the mass production of puppies and doing it to make money, and the impact on the animals, animal welfare, and the burden on society. We have conducted significant research in the past 10 years on commercial breeder facilities, some of which are called puppy mills, and the harm to these animals. Oftentimes, certain facilities may cut corners to increase profits. Maybe it's lower labor, maybe it's less veterinary care, maybe less quality food. Now, there is what we did when working on, we had also worked on the Minnesota commercial breeder law. And one of the things we were finding through all of our research was animals combined and mass produced not smaller reputable breeders, but mass produced, if they lack socialization and enrichment, we found a number of them were so mentally harmed, they were going insane. They would be spinning in circles, cowering in a corner, bouncing off the walls, or if rescued, they took forever to be able to try and rehabilitate, which is why we added in language in the breeder law that actually says animals must be provided daily enrichment and must be provided positive physical contact with human beings and compatible animals at least twice daily. The reason is to be able to look at the animal welfare aspect, not just physical, but mental and behavioral. And then there are so many other things from ventilation, temperature control, exercise, veterinary care, numerous standards that must be followed to provide for the physical, mental, and social well-being of these animals. Now, I've been told that I want to respect the authority of the Planning Commission. I've been told that not all animal welfare, or that all animal welfare issues are not really the responsibility of the county, but are more to the Board of Animal Health, the state. And the state law says a conditional use permit shall remain in effect as long as the conditions agreed upon are observed. So one of the questions that I've had today is, what are your processes to ensure compliance? Do you know if all conditions, local and state, within every breeding facility that is already permitted are being met? And that every animal is healthy and safe? And if not, then respectfully, I would ask, please consider not granting more conditions until it was really discussed. What compliance do you know? We don't have access to any of these kennels. They're private. And also the Board of Animal Health does not provide inspection reports or enforcement records to the public. So all of us are in the dark. We don't know what is happening within kennels. So in regard to this applicant and future petitioners, we ask that you recommend denial of the kennel or recommend a moratorium that would halt all permits for the breeding facilities and allow time to study the issue.
Thank you.
Yes, and we just ask for a different approach, one that will really recognize Winona County as a humane community for animals. Thank you very much.
Does anyone else want to speak for or against the petition? Please come forward, give your name, address. Anyone online? Out there in cyber world? Okay. The third and final time, if anyone wishes to speak for or against a petition, speak now or forever hold your peace.
I'll move to close the public hearing. Second.
Steve motioned to close the public hearing and Lou seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Public hearing is closed. Okay, now what do you want to discuss? Anyone have any questions, comments, discussion?
I move that we vote for the permit on that. Proper.
Okay, there's a, Lou made a motion to approve the permit.
I second.
And Arlie seconded it. Does that include the findings of fact as presented in the conditions?
Correct.
Okay. You got that all, Stephanie? Okay, there's a motion and a table, and a motion and a second on the table.
We're still in discussion, correct?
We're still in
Okay.
discussion.
I guess I'd like to make a comment here. I appreciate the comments made by the public regarding animal welfare. I think that's something that's very important. But I also feel that this is a family-run operation that sells to private parties, and that from what I can see in the staff report and the questions we've asked, this is in keeping with our ordinance and our comprehensive plan for the county, so my comment.
Okay, anyone else have any comments? Charlie?
I've known Eric since most of my life. And I have a feeling that puppies will have a lot of attention with their grandkids and that. And I can see the animal folks, they're concerned, and rightfully so, because some of these bigger ones need to be taken care of and watched. But I feel in my part, I think the Ericksons are very comparable to taking care of and run it very nicely for the animals as well. That's it.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a
Yeah.
comment. I appreciate the research and the work of the animal folks as well for animal welfare. And the idea that, you know, we're something about how we see this as some sort of farming activity in our county ordinance, which kind of made me raise my eyebrows a little bit. Something we may want to delve into further as far as how we define it. Because it's really not farming if the animal's not used for food or fiber.
How do you figure that?
I was looking at the ordinance stuff, what was in the state that's defining. That's another thing that's going to take more time down the road. But as far as animal welfare, it's almost like talking about child welfare and human welfare. The county doesn't have the capacity to make sure all the kids are tucked in bed and safe at night, you know? And how can we do that with animals? It's just not it's not in our purview.
Well, I mean, there are, you know, you're inspected every year by the US or the, what is it?
By the state.
Yeah, by the state.
Yeah, it's inspected every year, but there's 365 days in the year. So just as far as us being able to, you know, be certain that animals have good treatment, that's I don't see us being able to do that on a daily basis.
Mike?
I agree with the findings of fact. I think they're very accurate. And I also agree with the conditions. And some of the other assumptions, I don't think I can really delve into because we don't know that'll happen. I mean, we have suspicions in some cases, but I feel my job is to either agree or disagree with findings of fact. If I think more conditions should be necessary, I should add them, but I feel that they're covering it. So I agree with the findings of fact and the conditions.
The only question I had on the conditions on one of them, from my point of view, is they want staff to give a number on January 1, and on July 1, they have to give a number to the state. So why wouldn't they, but I guess that's 6 months difference in time, but why wouldn't you just have it at the same time as the state gets it? Or Kay, can you answer that one?
Mr. Chair, at the time that we suggested that condition based on discussion and input and phone calls that we received informally, we were not aware that the Board of Animal Health asked for the numbers in July. And had we done so, we would have aligned those two dates so as to not inconvenience either the Board of Animal Health or especially the petitioner and somebody that's got a business. Thank you.
Question then, should we change it to July 1?
That's up to you folks, but that would be the recommendation from staff. Thank you.
I would move to change it to July 1st.
To keep it in check. Okay, how do we do this now?
I would take that as a friendly amendment.
And you do the friendly second?
I will.
Well, he
Steve
seconded
can.
it, so we have to. Okay, now we have to vote on this.
The amendment.
Okay, and you seconded that. Okay, Jordan made the motion and Mike seconded it to change the date from January 1st, or is it January 1st? To July 1st. Any discussion?
I think it makes sense to streamline this. I don't
agree.
understand having two different dates.
I agree.
So I concur with your concern about it.
Anybody else have any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passed. Now, we still have a motion, a second on the table for the amended conditions. Thank you. Quick point of order question for Kay or Stephanie. Because we have one, do we have to do it roll call or can we do it the voting because one is online?
I would say you could do it in person and then just make sure that you've heard a response from your online member.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Steve?
Can I ask the applicant a question?
Absolutely.
Mr. Erickson, could you come to the podium? I have made more visits probably than I can count during those process when we approved a number of kennels back in 2016 to all the different sites. And I was always welcomed and encouraged to stop in at any time, and I did. And the public has at times said, well, these places are off limits, they're behind closed doors, we don't know what they're doing. If I wanted to stop by sometime to see your operation, how things function, am I off limits or can I see what's going on there?
As long as you haven't been in any other dog kennels.
Yeah, I did have to wear white boots or, slip on. Yeah.
No, you're welcome. Anybody's welcome.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
I'm extending that welcome to the board members, okay, not public.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Louis?
Dogs have been a long history of humanity. It's the first animal that we've had domesticated by it. Novus did a few shows on the origin of the dogs and how they came. People and dogs have came together. They've helped our species survived a lot better because of the dogs. And now, since we don't need them for hunting and other deals, we now need them for pets, compliments. And another thing we add in here, the strong motive of profit does a lot to serve humanity in the fact that the welfare of these dogs will be taken that they're making a living off of these dogs. And if they don't take proper care of them, they're the ones that are going to pay the price. And I think the profit motive should be made more available throughout our government, so that profit is not a bad thing. But that's basically what I've said. It's more power to them to have more free enterprise.
Thank you. Anybody have anything else to say? If not, we have a motion and a second on the table to accept the amended, what's that word again? Conditions, thank you. And approve this permit. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Hey,
Okay. It passed. We heard you, Byron.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now your thing will go in front of the county board. Do you have a date on that? Okay, it'll go in front of the board August 10th for final approval. All right, anything else with this one? This one is done. On to the next one. Docket number PC 07152102. To consider the petition of Roseanne Nunheim who seeks a conditional use permit in regards to the request of building a new house. And we have Lou on track for this. Welcome, Lou.
Good evening. As you said, this is a request for to allow a new dwelling within 300 feet of the top of the bluff in the Mississippi River Bluffs overlay. Request is pursuant to chapter 11.6.43 of the Winona County zoning ordinance. The Mississippi River Bluffs is defined as the area within 3 miles of the Mississippi River. Actually, it's median of Highway 61 through Winona County. Since this is within 3 miles, is defined as the Mississippi River Bluffs, and then conditional use is required for anything that's closer than 300 feet of the top of the bluff. Just to be clear as to why we're here and what we're discussing. The site location is in Homer Township, section 31, at the end of Government Point Road. You can see it's a little bit to the south and east of Winona, above Highway 61. This is a map of the property. Parcel lines are in yellow. It's approximately a 50-acre parcel. The blue is the area defined as bluffs. So the area of slopes that are greater than 18%, and average greater than 25% from toe to top. That also includes a 100-foot setback in that blue color there. The reddish or rose color is the prime soils on the site, and those consist of type 3 and type 2 soils. The proposed dwelling would be on the type 3 soils. Next slide. This is a close-up of the proposed building site, showing the same overlays, only in this case the bluff overlay is split up, showing the bluffs and the 100-foot setback. And that's in relation to the proposed driveway, home, and garage on the site. As you can see, the driveway comes off Government Point Road and tracks across the contour over to the proposed building site, which is right up against the 100-foot setback on site. And it should be noted that on site when I was there, the house was staked out a little close to the bluff, so that would have to be moved back. I'm trying to remember, but it was somewhere around 30 feet, I think. Next slide. The MRB, as we had discussed before, is within 1 mile of center medium Highway 61. CUP required for within 300 feet of the top of the bluff. The ordinance has 8 additional standards included within the MRB that relate to everything from down lighting, and has to be cast down and no higher than 8 feet. There's supposed to be no reflective colors or siding on the dwelling, and the colors are all supposed to be earth tone. All supposed to be standards that make it blend into the landscape better. This proposed dwelling is supposed to be 31 feet in height, which is just 4 feet less than our maximum height of 35 feet. The land use on the property is roughly 24 acres of row crops. I shouldn't say that. It's not 24 acres of row crops. It's 24 acres of tillable land. That's in contour strips. So part of that is in row crops. Part of it is in hay. And 24 acres is wooded. Nearest neighbors are approximately 1,200 feet to the east. And slopes range between 3 and 12%.
You already said can't hear that, but
Next one. Here's a couple of photos of the building site from below, from Highway 61. One of the additional A standards is that we are supposed to conduct a viewshed analysis for the proposed dwelling. So this is parked down along Highway 61 to give you an idea of the location. The cliff there is Government Point. I have circled on the right the tree line, which you can see is thin. It's decent screening for the summer, but it's certainly not very good for the winter. You'll be able to see right through that. And then the photo on the left is showing on the landscape where the approximately where the home would be built. Here we have a couple of photos of the proposed building site. If you look closely, you can see some stakes out there, but really what you need to be looking at is that the site is where you can see the hay has been cut. That's the tillable field, or the agricultural field. The area beyond that is the building site. Like I said, I think those stakes need to be moved back a few feet, so they'll probably end up into the field just a little bit. And you can see the vegetation along the edge of the top of the bluff there. Next slide. A couple more photos showing field access. You can see the field a little bit better from that photo on the left, but that would be in between the proposed building site and Government Point Road. So the driveway would be coming across that contour to the building site. And then the photo on the right is showing Government Point Road at the end, looking back to the south. Should be noted that most of the parcel is in high archaeological probability area. So prior to a development certificate being issued, there will need to be a phase 1 archaeological survey, just to let you know that is also in the area there. So, next slide. Homer Township acknowledgement was received. They indicated support for the project. In conclusion, the location on top of it is on a prominent bluff overlooking the Mississippi River. The dwelling height is 31 feet in height, so those are both concerns staff would have with the location and the proposed dwelling. There is screening that exists on the site, but it is thin, especially looking to the south towards Winona. And will not provide much in the way of screening in winter leaf-off conditions. Next slide. As always, our recommendation is to consider all the testimony and materials before making a decision on using the criteria in the ordinance. Decision is to recommend approval. Staff has included 6 conditions for consideration. Condition number 4 includes requirements for a landscape plan that we would then review for additional screening on that site. So just want to call your attention to that. And I believe there's one more slide here. And that would be the end of the presentation. So, anybody have any questions for me at this time?
What is, of the, it was roughly 50 acres, did you say? What is do you have anything that shows the elevation of the whole parcel?
I don't think I have a LiDAR map available. We could try to bring up Beacon and put that on. Essentially, right at that, the property is rolling hills, except for that front, you can see there, where it just falls off.
Yeah.
And you can see right there, there's a tree line where the birch are there. And that's probably about 10 feet wide or so. And then it slopes, there's probably another 10 feet where it kicks down and then it's just cliff, straight up and down off of that point.
Okay, but the rest of the,
The rest of the 50 acres is rolling hills. Yeah, and you can see here, it's fairly flat. It's probably a 3% slope or so, I would say. And then behind in the, I think there's another photo of the field. You can see it gently goes up through the agricultural field and back down away from the backside.
gently up and gently down.
Yeah. You can see there's probably more like a 6 to 10% slope up through that contour into the cornfield.
Okay.
So Lou, it sounds like they're at the peak. They're at the peak of the bluff.
They're
It's
at the
hard
top
to-
of the bluff. They'd be about 100 feet back from the cliff.
Okay, and then you wanted to add another 30 feet to that?
Well, to make that 100 feet, where they have it staked is a little bit closer to the top, what I would consider the top of the bluff out there. Yeah, moving it back about 30 feet would get you to that 100-foot setback.
Okay.
Have you discussed that with them?
Not in length. No.
Okay, anybody else have any?
Yeah, Lou, is there anything that prevents them from removing that screening, the trees that are there after they build the
Our
house?
ordinance does,
Okay.
and so it's an educational piece, to let them know, that's part of, this hearing is let them know that that's a ordinance requirement, and then the MRB actually allows us to add screening, if needed, and so that's where the condition for a landscape plan to review and hopefully get some trees planted there to add, strengthen that buffer a little bit.
Do you think those trees there are near the height that the proposed building is, or?
It's hard to say. 31 feet is fairly tall. I'm sure those birch there, yeah, they could be easily 30 feet.
At the angle, they'd be looking at them.
Right.
Too.
Yeah, because it's 100 feet, right, from the edge of the bluff?
Yeah,
it's
so
100
the
feet to where the house
where I would
starts?
count that 100 feet is that there's a cliff, and then behind the cliff, there's a steep slope of probably 30% at least that kind of comes up and rounds off and then gets flat. And at the top of that, like that slope that comes off of the cliff, that's where I would call it the top of the bluff, because it's supposed to be an 18% slope or less.
So
It's 100
it's,
feet back from that.
right, it's 100 feet back, so it's quite a ways back there then.
It should be, is where the house could be placed.
Then they dig a well on top of the bluff? Is that how the water gets to them?
Yeah, they would need to dig a well, install a septic system. I don't know what the depth of soils are in that location, but I would imagine, the further you get back, the deeper the soils are up in the agricultural field.
And no street lights if it can't be higher than 8 feet?
Exterior lighting can't be higher than 8 feet, and it has to be downcast. Usually the exterior lighting would be on the backside where the driveway and the garage are. But there's potential that, people might have a deck out on the backside or something, and any kind of exterior lighting needs to be less than 8 feet.
Have they given you any plan for their septic or well?
Not at this time, no. That would come later during the development certificate when they apply for that. So no, we haven't had any detailed plans of the house design or the septic system.
Oh, I guess I'm a little concerned on voting on it until a person would see
Well, I think as long as they, the conditions are such where you'd be approving it so that it meets those design standards that the ordinance does have. As well as lighting, that's something that staff's gonna have to review and check off on when we are looking at the development certificate.
But we would all vote on it with ordinance.
Yeah, and one of the conditions is that it meets all requirements of the ordinance, and then we did add a couple of conditions just because archaeological sites is, it's unique for this property, so we added that even though it's in the ordinance as a separate condition. And we also added the landscape plan as a separate condition.
Where did the ecological, where did that come into play? Was there a reason?
The landscape plan?
Yeah.
Archaeological
The
plan.
heritage. That's a
It's
federal law,
archaeological.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's from state.
It's, yeah, the archaeological piece was something that Winona County adopted a number of years ago because of largely concerns of sites like this and the potential for Indian burial sites and mounds. Because tops of bluffs, promontories such as this are high probability for those.
So what does a phase 1 survey entail? Are you digging? Are you just looking or?
We contract that out with Mississippi Valley Archaeology Center in La Crosse. They come down and do a number of shovel borings or shovel pits, test pits, and they're spread out, I think, every 10 meters or so, and they do that within, I think it's 100 feet of the building envelope. So they get the building envelope plus, you know, a reasonable amount of area beyond that they would be looking for. And they shovel test, go down as deep as they can with their shovels, and then screen and look for any cultural artifacts.
Isn't that a federal requirement?
Yeah.
It is a federal requirement for federal projects. So Section 106 is the federal law of I think the Historic Preservation Act. And so yeah, that falls under the purview of the feds on any federal project. So Highway 61, road projects, you know, anything in a national forest, national park. The state also has their own standards, so anything within state projects has to meet the SHPO or State Historic Preservation Office and state archaeologist standards. But private land, no, it doesn't. There is federal law that protects burial sites.
Okay.
Anywhere on private land as well.
Maybe that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that requires survey for private land or local jurisdiction. So.
Okay.
Just one quick addition. The petitioners did receive a variance for prime soils this afternoon, freeing up other sites on the property for a dwelling in addition to what is being proposed. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I just may have one. So this is strictly because of the Mississippi River Bluffs corridor. If this was not in that 3-mile corridor, it is meeting the standards for the rest of the county.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Patrick, do you have any questions?
None. Informative, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, now does the petitioner or representative would like to speak to the petition, please?
Hi, this is Roseanne Nonheim.
You don't have to just.
Oh, sorry, just working on my computer here. I just wanted to say that I appreciate dark sky, and that's one of the reasons I want to be up there. I'm an amateur astronomer. I go up there, or had for many, many years, for the Perseid meteor shower. And in fact, we took down a tower that was up there for the Minnesota, Iowa television group that had been there from 1966 to 2006. The reason for that partially being we appreciate dark sky, and we would try to be as low profile as possible up there. But it's been in the family now, the Sukamelonic farm, and had a house on it many, many years ago that we used to go to. And I appreciate the whole site and would like to live up there when we retire. So that's my motivation for choosing this site. Here's my husband.
My motivation for choosing the site is because she wants it.
Good idea.
Smart man.
43 years of marriage, and that's what I learned.
Blessed.
I love honest people.
Way to go. Great answer.
Hey, is there any questions from any of you guys for the petitioners?
This is Patrick. I have at least one comment. It's great to hear coming from this couple, their integrity and sounds like honest appreciation for what is in their plan. I think that's great. On something like that, you want to take advantage of the good-natured blessings around there, yet still keep a low view. So I applaud you for your efforts on getting that done and staying true to it. There's a lot to be gained by that.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone here have any questions for the petitioner?
I'll ask a question. Were there, was any consideration given to any other site on the 50 acres that would not affect the Mississippi River Valley viewshed?
When we used to go hunting up there, my uncle Cal Sukamel picked out a site up there, and that's pretty much where we want to build. So that's why we picked it.
Yeah, we don't have any specific other. It's actually probably also going to be the easiest place to build because, as you could see from the pictures you had, it happens to be a flat place that doesn't have to be leveled, and it was the closest place to the road. There are other places that it would require a longer road, clearance of trees. It just seems like it would be the appropriate place. It at 31 feet, set back 100 feet, you're not going to be able to see it from below. I could stand on the roof, and the angles are such that you would not be able to see the house. That plus the
Except maybe in the winter.
Well, if we do the additional screening as suggested and plant the trees, I think that's going to be a moot point within a short period of time.
Hey, anyone else have any questions?
What did you think would be a moot point? I didn't catch that.
Seeing it from the bottom.
Okay.
This is Patrick. I applaud your efforts to make this as environmentally friendly as possible. And I'm sitting here in my chair with goosebumps, just envious of what you're about to undertake.
Patrick, you're invited up for drinks.
I go down that and I know exactly where that site is. I mean, at least from the ground, and it's like, you know, there's a place of heaven right up there. There really is. And I applaud you for moving on that.
All right. Is there anyone that has any more questions for the petitioner? If not, I'm looking for a motion to open the public hearing.
So move.
Patrick made the motion to open the public hearing. Jordan seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The public hearing is now open. Anyone that wishes to speak for or against this petition, please come to the podium or let us know online if you would like to speak. Is there anyone online that would like to speak? See that construction company is there, but.
J&M and L&M.
It's their construction company.
I don't know what that is. It's just a motion.
the second time, is there anyone who'd like to speak for or against the petition? Anyone online? Is someone trying to say something and we can't hear it or what?
I think that's what's going on.
I think the construction company, their
No, they're-
representative is trying to get on, but they might have two. devices.
Hello? There you go. Okay, hello?
Turn the volume up.
We hear you now. Speak up.
They want to hear from us.
Hello? We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Too many devices.
Hello?
They want it.
Hello?
Do we need the microphone to be loud enough
Yeah,
for
they
them?
definitely want to hear from us.
Volume's all the way up. Volume's all the way up.
We can hear you. Just say what you'd like to say, please. They're not muted, right? No, they're not muted.
Go down there. Can you message them, or you're probably trying?
Muted,
no.
Harley, you know sign language, right?
We can hear you.
They can hear us. Yes, this is just J&M Construction. Somehow the sound went off. We can't hear anything going on there, but, no, we're gonna construct a house accordingly to blend in with the landscape. And if we have to move it, the stakes back from where we have it marked out, whatever Lou says the house has to be, that's where we'll put it. Thank you.
Okay. For the third and final time, anyone that wishes to speak for or against the petition, please speak up, or whatever you do. No one making any noise now?
I'll move to close the public hearing.
There's a motion. Steve, motion to close the public hearing, and Arlie seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. Okay, any discussion? Jordan.
Yeah, I'll just say that we today voted to grant a variance for prime soils. There was a small area that was not prime soils that would have met the 100-foot setback, but we felt that it was farther from the road and it would have taken up more prime soils to get to that area than it really would have been worth. I guess I don't want to speak for everyone, but that's kind of the conclusion that we came to, and we changed some of the findings of fact to support that and granted that variance.
Yes, length of driveway is kind of important, because especially these guys are gonna be retirement age, and you know, you get snowstorms and everything else, and emergency vehicles and everything else, so you don't want driveways too terribly long.
Yeah.
Steve?
It seems like we've got into this before about how much sense the prime soils issue makes. If they're finding a spot outside of the tillable acres, makes more sense to put that house in that position outside of the tillable acres, even though that's prime soil. I mean, why does prime soil matter if it's not being used for agriculture? It seems like that's a flaw in our ordinance. We had an issue with an Amish that was going to build in a wooded area, never had been tilled or farmed, and they had to get a variance from prime soils. Well, if he'd have put it out in the field, he wouldn't have had to get the variance. So I mean, it's wrong. It's wrong. Needs to be corrected.
Anybody else would like to, questions, conversation, speech?
Can I make a motion to pass this one?
What do you want to do?
As long as it meets all the.
Well, them are the conditions, so we'll have to in order to do that.
I'll second it.
Okay, Arlie Herber made the motion to pass this, and Lou seconded it. Time for discussion. Okay, what about the findings of fact that are in red? Is that okay if they're in
Just
red?
verify that the that was a motion to adopt the findings and recommend approval with the conditions.
Is that what you
Yes.
said, Arlene?
Yes.
Yes.
And then as far as your question regarding the findings that are in red, you can still approve, even though there are some in red, as long as the record is clear as to why you're still approving it, even though not all the criteria were met.
I have a question for you. Twice in the last 2 years, we've discussed view sheds of different projects, specifically solar projects where people didn't like the view out their window. And we were told you can't discriminate by view shed. If you don't own it, you can't control the view shed of it. And now this one is basically based on view shed. I mean, some of the things in red are based on the fact that it might disrupt someone's view shed. And I'm really confused as how come we're not, I mean, we put a 30-acre solar mega generation plant on a bluff top on Apple Blossom Drive, one of the top tourist spots in the whole county, in the state, next to 300 feet from homes there. And yet you can't discuss view shed because you can't do that. And now this one is all about view shed. So please, can you enlighten me on that? I'm just a little confused.
Short answer is blame the ordinance. My understanding of this, there is no technical legal right to a view from your property. But the way that our ordinance is written as it relates to the bluffs, correct? The bluffs aspect of it does have specific criteria and requirements regarding the view. So that's where that comes from in this particular case as opposed to others.
Just to add to that, this one is closer to the bluff. It's within that 300 feet, whereas the solar arrays were not within that 300 feet. So there's no trigger for those. If they were closer and they were within that 300 feet from the top of the bluff, then we'd be applying the ordinance differently to those projects as well.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
That gets kind of interesting too in the view shed idea. With this house on top of the bluff, if you're driving on Highway 61, I think what he was talking about with the angle and everything, you know, you'd almost have to be across the river
On top.
or in a plane
With binoculars.
to actually see the house, you know, when you get the angle of perspective
Yeah,
and the
I mean,
viewpoint.
That's the hard part, is determining from below what that angle is. And, you know, that's why when you're looking at something that's more like 31 or pressing up against the 35 feet in height, you know, will that be able to be seen? Probably not as you get closer to the bluff, but as you get further away, that angle gets flatter, and then you have potential to see it. So,
So it didn't do any service for the second solar megawatt garden for the cars, but
I want to ask Lou a question too. The view shed is based on the center of the river, right?
it's based on the center median of Highway 61.
Okay.
That's where the 1 mile is measured from.
Now, the 300 feet from the bluff, in the past, have we had many houses that have had to adjust their plans and move back?
We've only probably heard a small handful of petitions that have applied for within that 300 feet. So, as far as modifying house plans, I can't remember of any.
So we're really encouraging them to be at least 300 feet from the bluff, right?
We're saying that you have to be at least 100 feet, but if you're within 300 feet, we want to give it extra scrutiny and make sure that, you know, that it's, that you're putting thought into it and that it's a sensitively designed home.
This is just minimal 100 feet.
Minimal 100 feet, yep, that's the setback. You know, we're not here considering a variance. You know, if it was within 100 feet, there'd be a variance requirement. So that's why it's a conditional use permit. The planning commission is looking at it.
And if they built a deck, say, out from that, in that 100 feet, would it be allowed, or would they need a variance to do a deck?
Deck would be part of the structure, so that would have to meet that 100-foot setback.
Okay.
Yep. So that should be, you know, incorporated into the design. If they wanted a deck, you know, that deck space would need to meet the 100-foot setback.
I just want to make it clear that everybody's aware of that. And they probably are. I don't know.
If they weren't, they are now.
Anybody else have any? Jordan?
One more point that we brought up in the previous meeting I was at was that there are several houses on Government Point Road that are within the 100-foot.
Okay.
Prior to that zoning ordinance, I believe.
Prior to that Mississippi.
Closer than 100 feet.
Okay, Steve?
Yeah, as, you know, as I'm looking at the findings of fact, I'm okay with just passing it because it's going to be passed, but in my view, 4, 5, and 6, it should not say is not on any of those. It should say it is. It's reasonably related to the overall needs of the county and existing land use.
Same thing.
You want to make that a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to remove the word not from findings of fact, number 4, number 5, and number 6.
I would second that.
Should we make a distinction then about them preferring the dark sky? I mean, if someone reviews these records later, it won't really apply. I mean, it doesn't explain why these are part of it.
Well, I'm not following you whatsoever. Dark sky.
She was saying she's an astronomer.
Yeah.
And she wants the sky dark, and they're trying to not make a very big footprint on the earth. And if someone thinks about view shed in this house from another party, they may not see the reasonableness of saying this does comply with the ordinance.
Yeah, I've read them all, and it's my feeling that they comply.
Okay. We've already adopted these, so we would have to go back and unadopt.
No, we have a motion and a second.
Okay, we have a motion
And a
to
second.
adopt them, so
To
now we
adopt.
have to modify that motion.
This
But,
is an amendment.
This is amendment.
okay, but I do have a question then. Since it does say is not, could you clarify for us why 4, 5, and 6 say the use is not reasonably related, use is not consistent, use is not in conformance?
Well, it pretty much explains it, right?
Well, if you read
That's spelled out in the findings of fact.
Yeah.
So the draft findings of fact explain why staff analysis was that it is not. If you want to change that to is, you can revise the findings however this board seems appropriate.
So I guess my question, Mr. Chair, would be how are, well, first a comment. We don't need that for them to meet all condition or all
I understand that.
of these findings in order to approve it. But now we do have to come up with, if you want to change those, you need to come up with how you're going to articulate how it does reasonably relate to the overall needs of the county.
It's just like every other dwelling we've ever approved. People need places to live. It's got more than 40 continuous acres. For every reason that we would approve any other dwelling, it makes, this one makes as much sense as any other dwelling. So all 3 of those. People need places to live. And
Yeah,
they have the
I
right to-
agree. I read, and that's why I questioned the red ones, because
There's actually a housing shortage right now, and they're
Mhm.
contributing to the solution.
Chairman Mark, what the staff found for finding number 4, they say that it conflicts with protecting the view shed in the corridor.
but it's 100 feet back. Does it? I mean,
Right, well, that's the part that I think we need to
I
kind
mean,
of
that's where
modify.
you can agree or disagree, but it's really hard to put a house up there and then go, oh yeah, I can see it, but I mean,
Yeah.
is that view shed, if you're driving down the road, I mean, is one thing, but if you have to sit there with binoculars and go, well,
Don't know.
yeah, there's something up there. It's not a tree.
So is
I
that
don't
what you want to say then? I mean, we need to come up with findings if we're not going to use these, so if that's how
If
you
we're gonna
want to
change them.
articulate it, let's articulate it.
Yeah.
But just like number 6, there is no explanation on number 6. We just eliminate the,
Well, there is, but it's a whole,
no,
on the back page here is, go to the next
oh,
page.
okay.
It's
So
a
next
long
page.
explanation. But if you read almost all our explanations, it could go either way.
Right.
Right there.
So do we want to actually change them?
Right. I don't know if I would change them because it does show both sides of it.
Yep.
But if you just take it out, then that would mean we decided that the pro was more than the against.
Well, okay, so like number 6, Chair Clark, you know, they mentioned there's other houses already on the road and that her uncle had a house on that property. So I would feel better having stated that in that section of why they're saying it's not in conformance. I don't know.
But I don't know where the house was on the property. I don't know.
Well, and the way they're describing it sounds like, you know, it was pure ag and no residential, but that's not really the case if the road has houses closer than 100 feet to the bluff.
Some of us were involved in the comp plan update. Were you on that, Mark? Mike, you were the chair. The staff has every right to interpret what they read, how they want to read it. We were here developing it. We have the right to have a different view than staff has. My view is it is in compliance. It is reasonably related to the overall needs of the county. It is in conformance with my intention of the comp plan that I adopted and was part of that process. So
Any other discussion?
You know, if we require them to move the house so we can't see it from the highway with binoculars, then we're in prime soil. So it's a no-win, and
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
you know, Lou said they gotta move it in. I think you'd have a heck of a time finding that place from the road.
Yeah, I agree. And the other thing about a deck, I think if I had that house on that property, I'd put the deck on the roof.
Well, she's a stargazer. She's gonna know where it goes.
That's where I'd put the deck. Then you'd really get a good view. Okay.
Mr. Chair, it was just a quick reminder. So because of the prime soil variance, they can move the house at will onto prime soil. The other thing is staff's ability to read and analyze the comprehensive plan and our familiarity with it is not lacking in any way. However, the aspirations and the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan are not always able to be perfectly reconciled with one another because perfect emphasis on agriculture and perfect emphasis on the economic development for the next 150 years for the tourism industry. Not every one of those items, as hard as everyone worked to put it together, and it's an excellent document, can be reconciled with one another. So we're not equivocating when we point out more than one aspect of the comprehensive plan.
Now, I like when you put out more than one plan because you can see, you know, because a lot of things it could go either way. But today, at this point in time, this group, so far we have a motion. Do we have a second to this?
Yeah.
Jordan seconded to change, to take the not out of 4, 5, and 6.
What do we need to do that?
You have to, Mr. Chair, you actually have to articulate why.
Yes.
And,
strike it.
you know, if you're going to change what an is not to an is, you have to say why you're changing, why it is. What's articulated here is why it is not. So you have to come up with verbiage that articulates why it is reasonably related based upon the comprehensive land use plan and based upon the ordinance. So, I mean, if you want to do that, you're welcome to do it. It certainly is your right, but you need to do that. That's what findings of fact are about.
Okay, I will take number 4. And number 4, the last sentence where it says it will be visible in the winter, I would change the will to may.
I think you could just remove everything after however.
Mr. Chair, if I might make a suggestion on this one, I do have an idea for that based on the conversation that I've heard and some of the points that were previously made.
Okay,
Give me just a second, I'll put it up on the screen.
all righty. Want to read it?
So essentially it takes the however and makes it an although. So it's
Okay.
although the location on the parcel where it's in view from the Mississippi River Valley conflicts with the goal of protecting the view shed in the corridor because it will be visible in winter, single-family residential dwellings are permitted uses in the zoning district if they meet minimum lot size and other setbacks and standards, which this proposed dwelling does. So by reversing it, we can make it in favor.
Wow.
Good with that?
I'm okay with that too.
Yep, good move.
Called may instead of will, because
Well-
how can we be?
You know, we could change it so the house is camouflage, and we could make it with white siding in there, so in the winter, they got a storm, nobody could see the house, and for that.
All right, how about number 5 then? Do we have to do each one of these separate and we have to vote on each one separately?
I
You
think we
don't
can
have
combine
to
them all.
vote on them separately, but we do need to make sure that we get them. We'll put together proposed language for the change and then you can go in and vote on all
Okay.
of them if you'd like.
All right, let's work on number 5 now.
Stephanie, you're on a roll.
Read it and digest.
To me, it just seems like number 5, housing is needed in Winona County, and the conditional use permit fills part of that need.
That and it may be visible in winter, like Mark said.
It will be.
It goes back to the number 4, mayor.
I have a option or a suggestion. I'm kind of doing what Stephanie did. If we strike the although zoning district supports both ag and new single-family dwellings that meet standards of the district, comma, just strike that and go on to say, the purpose of the MRB overlay district is to protect and enhance intrinsic natural scenic qualities of bluffs. 31-foot foot dwelling will be located just outside 100-foot setback. Screening from existing trees will partially obscure the residents from below. We don't have to say, well, only partially. It's kind of a double. And then strike the last sentence. And you can say is.
There, I did have some proposed language up there as well, which is to change it to the 31-foot high dwelling will be located just outside the 100-foot setback from the top of the bluff, and screening from existing trees may only partially obscure the residents. However, additional screening may further mitigate this concern.
That's what I said too, and strike the last sentence.
Addressed that earlier too.
One okay with that one?
Good.
Number 6.
Back on cost to put up there.
Hmm.
700,000?
I don't know, depends on the house.
Doesn't matter.
Drill well, you're getting almost 100 grand to drill the well. So
15.
that deep,
Shouldn't be that deep, the river's right below it.
that'll make no difference. You gotta get in decent water, I mean,
Well, I don't know.
depends how much a standpoint. But you saw it.
Probably be a 600-foot deep well.
Think so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a
Yeah,
well
look
at
to the bottom.
670.
Well, my big one is 670, but my little one's at 310.
My mom and dad's over there, that's 840.
Oh, really?
And my
Neighbors
house is
is
a
at
30-foot
610.
well.
That's a new record. I
And
haven't
the
heard,
water
that's the
is-
deepest one I've heard of.
Okay, Chair
Let's
Let's go
Clark.
back here.
Okay.
Chair,
Clark?
Mr. Chair?
You bet.
Yeah.
On number 6, if you wanted to change it, I might suggest moving kind of a middle sentence to the top and making it, the building height and location on the parcel are such that the dwelling, I will make that a may. may be seen from below for 6 months of the year, which is not in conformance with the goal of protecting major natural resource areas of the county. However, the proposed dwelling is in conformance with the goal of promoting agriculture as a viable land use activity, and that it is an area that is not intensely farmed and would not negatively impact neighboring agricultural uses. The site does not promote agriculture, but is located so as to minimize impact on farming areas by preserving better soils.
Bravo.
Perfect.
Awesome.
So it is
Okay.
in conformance.
Now, back to your motion. You amend your motion to approve 4, 5, and 6 as written by Stephanie. Jordan, you seconded.
Just a additional discussion.
Sure.
I'm going to vote against this
Okay.
because I just feel it was unnecessary, but as long as we're going with it, let's just go with it.
Okay, anybody else have any discussion?
No, just these changes, the conditions.
Yeah, this is a motion and a second on the conditions to change them to what Stephanie has
Findings
written
of
and
fact.
to erase the not in all of them.
The findings of fact and the conditions.
Findings of fact and conditions are 4, 5, and 6 to what Stephanie just wrote now. Okay, anybody have any other discussion on that? That's what we were voting on right now. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Patrick, what did you say?
Oh, not loud enough. Aye.
Okay, thank you. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay, motion passed. Any other discussion before we go to the main motion?
Does this help the board, the county commissioners, when it gets to you, to see how we
I see-
modify it?
I see a couple commissioners online. I mean, everyone has their own, thought process. I can't speak for the other commissioners.
Well, I just meant as far as having a record of how it evolved and how we made our decision. Does that help you guys when it comes time to look at it?
There has been times where the county board has relatively lengthy discussions on that. The couple campsites that were approved above Elba, and multiple of the county commissioners went out there and looked at the site and rehashed everything that this board did. So, the county board can watch this live. They can take whatever advice this board gives, or they can take a different position.
Right.
This is only recommendation to the board, and I can't speak for the other
Right,
four
no, I don't mean
commissioners.
it helps them to agree, just that it lays some groundwork to even be able to wrap your brain around what's happening.
I have nothing but respect for the other 4 county board members, and I think they're doing their jobs. To see them online here tonight, 2 of them, or maybe 3 of them. I think I might saw 3 of them online. Yeah, I think they're paying close attention.
Okay, now my memory is really short. So Stephanie, who made the motion and who seconded it?
Ooh, you're asking hard questions now. I have motion by Arlie, seconded by Louis, and it would be now to adopt the findings as amended and recommend approval with the conditions as presented.
Right. What Stephanie just said.
Mike,
Any other questions before we vote on that?
Well,
Mike?
I think that condition number 4 addresses the contentious areas we were talking about in 4 and 5 and 6. And Lou had addressed that earlier.
But we still needed to fix the findings of fact.
But this supports the findings of
Yeah.
fact as much as it did the other way.
Right.
And this is my point. We changed the findings of fact, but this will support concerns you might have had, and that may. Because if you have a condition, that may correct your may, all right? That's my feeling.
And hopefully the petitioners are listening, how important them trees are. How the screening that we're recommending, they're requiring. Any other questions?
If they're observing the stars with all the light pollution that goes on along the river, I don't know how much you'd really actually see.
Oh, I think you get up there, but it's pretty dark. You're above all the light.
Northern Lights. All right, night.
Yeah, I usually go across the river and look at them, but it's pretty good.
Anybody else have any other comment? Okay, we are now voting on to pass, to accept the amended findings of fact and the conditions as presented, and pass the thing we're working on. Petition.
If you need somebody to make the motion.
No,
No.
we have a motion, we have a second.
Well, we did the motions for the changes of.
Yep,
finding of fact.
we already have.
That's done.
Yeah, there was a motion previous to that.
Right,
And then now we're back to the original
we're
motion.
back to the original, so it's an amended findings of fact.
And I
Okay.
stand with what he said.
We're getting there. Anybody else have any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Byron said aye. Opposed? It passed. Thank you. Now, your next one is the county commissioners in August 10th, I believe.
Thank you so much for your help.
You're welcome.
Yep.
All right. Back to the.
Good luck.
Board of Adjustment.
If you'd like me to reiterate, I can. We voted to approve the prime soils variance earlier. That's all we had today.
Okay, thank you. And Steve.
Yes, the cabinet permit that we worked on last time to continue to exist, we passed.
Okay. Anyone else have anything else to be brought forth at this meeting? It's nice to have everyone here, including you guys sitting at the desk back there.
I make the motion to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
Arlie made a motion to adjourn, and Kelly, your voice heard finally. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. 46. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We will see you next month again. Is there any petitions for next month? Yeah.